Have you come across that guy? The fastest reader. No, but you guys can slow it down. Like, if you think I'm lying, we can go. It's been a long day without you, my friend. Welcome back to Zambia. What a day. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. I haven't been with you in a couple of days, but I'm back here and I'm very happy that we are back to talk about what's going on in our country. A lot of things have happened since the last time that we were together, and we will talk about these things today. What's coming up? The president's address to the nation being clarified by the Minister of Information and Media. We'll talk about that. The ministry, by the way, this is recycled paper. That's why it's printed on both sides, because we're trying to do the sustainable thing. Yeah. 30 unlawful structures raised in Lusaka National Park. They've been demolished from there. We will also talk about jail Chitotela contests seizure of state lodge property. Let's start. Let's set the ball rolling. I think this is one of the big stories at the moment. Minister of Information and Media, who is also Chief Government Spokesperson Cornelius Mwetwa, says President Hakainde Hichilema has no intention of extending his stay in power, but only appealed to address challenges in the Zambian constitution during his address in Parliament last Friday. Let's take a look at this.
Some lacunas can lead us to a situation where we could have no general election for 8 years. That's not a joke. Yes. We could have no election for 8 or 9 years.
This was a presidential address of the Fourth National Assembly on Friday last week, when President Hakainde Hichilema addressed a number of issues, and some of them which included the challenges in the Zambian constitution. However, the presidential speech has raised dust from some sections of society and some opposition leaders. Monday morning, however, Minister of Information, who is also government spokesperson Cornelius Mwetwa, said the president's statement has been misinterpreted.
As asserted in some quarters or sections of our society, that the president wants to adulterate the application of the current constitution for him to extend his stay in office. That is not the intention. And let me place on record, on behalf of the Government Republic of Zambia, that in addressing the issue of lacuna and also the issue of ambiguities that are presently plaguing the smooth application of the law as contained in our Constitution of 2026, the President of the Republic of Zambia, Dr. Hakainde Hichilema, did not mean any malice, did not intend any ill will, did not harbor any ulterior motive for his private and pecuniary political advantage. Zero.
He however said there is lack of consensus on the necessary reforms to ensure that the constitution reflects the aspiration of all the citizens.
To which most opposition parties now who want to speak loudest were agreeable that these issues, the 4 issues the president raised, had to be addressed. And according to the Shavonga Declaration, which was under the Patriotic Front leadership before 2021 elections, Article 52 was singled out as being a problematic article which needed to be ironed out.
Meanwhile, the presidential speech has brought a lot of talks from some members of the public and some opposition political party leaders, accusing the president that he wants to extend his stay in office. Helga Chibwe, Diamond News in Southern Province.
Okay. Listen. First of all, First of all, I completely agree with the minister. I completely agree with the minister that the president did not say that. The president did not say that he wants to overstay or whatever words you can use. He didn't say that. And I'm not very sure. I'm not very sure what is leading people to think in those lines. Because if you listen to what the president is saying, and in all fairness, he's kind of saying we need to fix the constitution because of this, whatever he's afraid of, which we will get into. Now, let me not use the word afraid, but whatever he's concerned with in this case. And that's kind of why he makes that comment. And there's different ways that people can look at it, right? But personally, I think that that's not the direction of the president in this case and in the context of this, because there's a bigger thing to look at here. And for me, it's more about consistency, the president's inconsistency, right? And I pulled out my phone because I want to do this here. Play the different audios. I want to start with the audio of the president on Friday. What the president said on Friday. This is what he said. Where do I do the thing? Okay.
So, Madam Speaker,
There we go.
after all, some lacunas can lead us to a situation where we could have no general election for 8 years. That's not a joke. Yes. We could have no election for 8 or 9 years. Those lacunas sit in the Constitution. So those who designed or signed off that Constitution, I'm not sure what they were intending to do.
That's the president. That's the president on Friday when he was addressing Parliament. Let me throw it back. This was the president in 2021. He featured on Costa. And he was asked about Article 52 of the Constitution. This is what he said.
And his MPs have celebrated the death of Bill 10. It will come to haunt you because we wanted to completely scrap out the entire Article 52. What they wanted it out, the entire Article 52. So the Justice Minister now says, look at 52.6. How does it work for you?
What is 52.6?
52.6 is talking about the Electoral Commission cancelling an election for 30 days when a candidate is disqualified, resigns, dies, or withdraws, or is found by a court wanting for malpractice and so on. This is the argument.
So what is wrong with that? That article protects citizens from having a president who is an imposter, who does not qualify. That article is in good faith. If the election is postponed for 30 days,
was that
That's the president there. A lot to unpack, first of all, starting from the fact that in that interview with Costa, the president didn't even have the right context of Article 52, which is, for me, why I say there's a lot of things to unpack here, because why was he weighing in on something he didn't understand? That's number one. Because he had a lot of people following him. And that is disinformation, a lot of people following him, and he weighs in on a topic that he doesn't understand at that specific time. And granted, it's the intention of this law is a bit contrary to what the suspicion may be, because the intention is, when a political party has a candidate participating in an election, and this candidate is disqualified, this candidate is dies, this candidate withdraws, the political party needs to be given an opportunity to find somebody else to participate in the election. And that's why that 30 days exists there, according to the Constitutional Court. So that's the reasoning behind having that clause in the Constitution. Except it is also true that it leaves such a gap that if Sinister can unnecessarily delay the election and just inconvenience the people. So the intention might have been right, because, look, if you have a candidate as a political party and this person is found wanting, they did something wrong, and they've been fired from the party, they die, the political party should be given the opportunity to find somebody else. It's only fair, especially in a democracy. But we can't overlook the fact that that exercise in itself also has the potential to disadvantage or inconvenience so many other people. But that's not the bigger issue for me. I think that the bigger issue is also an awakening for us as citizens to realize that politicians are not the most reliable people when it comes to constitutional reform. And that's why perhaps we've had these challenges with constitutional reform in the country, that we failed to reach a consensus for a very long time on what is an ideal constitution for Zambia, because it is driven by the politician. It is driven by the politician, and the politician is not, just like politicians say themselves that there are no permanent enemies in politics, there's no permanent opinion in politics. There's flip-flopping in politics based on what is convenient at the time. A political leader will hold one opinion today, and because their political standing has changed, they will hold a different opinion at that time, which for me I think is very dangerous when it comes to the constitution, because the opposition are going to oppose anything that's coming from the government, especially when it comes to the constitution, because they think that it is sinister. Like now, the opposition are riding with the narrative that President HH wants to be president for 8 more years, but that's not what he said. He was saying that, this has to be avoided if such a possibility ever occurred. And yet the opposition are driving this narrative. But I don't doubt that this current administration would have moved with the same narrative if they were in opposition, which is why we need to see politicians for what they are, that you can't really expect them to drive, and sometimes it's possible that they can drive the people's best interest, and most likely when they're in government, but very unlikely when they're in opposition, because they want to show their opponent in bad light, and then change when they're in government, because now they've got a larger responsibility to take care of things. But I think that that's a moral issue. That's an integrity issue, that you can't be a people that don't stand for anything. Like they just don't stand for anything. Their opinion is going to change based on what the tide looks like politically. And so this is an awakening for us to begin to have this conversation that, political leaders are not the best people to drive constitutional reform. And what are the citizens saying amongst themselves? They're probably not saying much, because the Zambian constitution also is based on how you understand it. Any simple thing needs a press briefing after a press briefing after a press briefing just to explain, And even the same thing, you're going to have 5 different versions of it. Is the man eligible? Is he not eligible? He's eligible because of, he's not eligible. Like everyone has got this argument, but it's the same constitution that they're reading. And that has got to tell you that there's a problem there. Can somebody be president more than twice? Can somebody be president only 2 times? It's come on, guys. It's really it's the character of the Zambian constitution, and perhaps we'll never reach that consensus. But I think that as citizens, we also really need to begin to have a conversation around politicians, because they are a people of their own, and they almost always have their own interest. And also, just to add on, I've seen people that have this narrative that this is not an important discussion to have. The president talked about many things. No, but he talked about many things, but he also said this was important. And if the president is saying that there is a provision in the Constitution, lacunas in the Constitution that make it possible for somebody to stay elections, that's a conversation worth having. And my final point on this is, I don't know, I've never seen this before. Maybe I don't pay a lot of attention, but the president delivers a speech to Parliament on Friday, which everyone listens to, at least those that were listening. We're all hearing the same thing. He's talking to the same ears. He's using the same English. But it needs someone to come and say what the president said. Oh, no, what the president said here is... I think, that's a bit weird, and it's, I find that, it's not a very good trend because why do we always need this clarity? The president has given a speech. You were listening to the speech. I was listening to the speech. How come you heard what I didn't hear? I heard what you didn't hear. He said this, but I heard this. He said this, but you heard this. And now you need to explain to me what he was saying, which you were listening to, and I was listening to also. When the man speaks, he's talking to the whole country, and people must just listen and understand what he's saying. It should be easy to understand what the president is saying. And you will notice that this happens a lot with the president when he speaks off cuff. That's why he said at one point, invest in energy and for once run genuine businesses. Oh my God. Oh my God. That is so condescending. What does he think about you guys? The president is fed up of your crooked ways. And, that's also when the president speaks off cuff. Oh, I have spoken my speak on this, and I think I'm done. I've spoken off cuff. Okay. The Ministry of Tourism has demolished 30 illegal structures. Also, let's go back. I'm so sorry, but look, I haven't had the opportunity to talk about the president's address. Look, the president also, in his address, I felt that he missed an opportunity when he was talking about democracy and freedoms of expression. Off cuff again. The president drives a lot. When he speaks off cuff, he remembers to talk about his opponents. And he missed that opportunity because I am one of the people that don't agree with people that suggest that Zambia is now a dictatorship and, and it's impossible for people to have their freedoms. Because I think to a large extent, people are enjoying their freedoms. And people are people are people, like the population. There are situations where, the president's government, the president's servicemen have weaknesses, like the Zambia Police Service. That's a huge talking point. But Zambians are experiencing a reasonable level of freedom. You talk about the use of the digital spaces. You talk about their freedom in these public spaces. It's a bit more habitable, because the political party cutters were very unsettling. That's why the Patriotic Front was voted out of office. So I think that those are reasonable things. And the president should have, assured citizens that he's going to safeguard their freedoms. But the president took the opportunity to take a swipe at his political opponent, Edgar Lungu, taking every opportunity in his usual fashion to sling mud at Edgar Lungu and his government. I thought people don't care about that anymore. I think that at this point, the president needs to be in contact with his people. Assure them that you will protect the people's rights. You will ensure that you protect the constitution of Zambia. And make your people feel at ease, that there's no sinister motives. Also, you can't live in oblivion, like in silos. We're in the same country, but we can't live in silos. That on the one hand, a lone protester is not allowed to. It's a lawful assembly where one person has assembled with a placard, and we want to gloss over that and make it seem like it didn't happen, or it was inconsequential, or that the person, committed gross misconduct. No, I don't think that's right. We should acknowledge when things go wrong. We should acknowledge when things are not the way they're supposed to be, and identify how we are working on those things. It doesn't hurt. Maybe it's because the country is super politicized, but I don't think it hurts to just say, this is not working well, and we'll try, Besides, this problem is not exclusive to this UPND government. It's a problem that has been in successive governments. And, okay, I've been told that I need to move on. What is the red card for?
Red card. You need to move on.
Okay, I need to move on. I've been told I need to move on. I've said a lot. But I mean, it's the presidential address. There was a lot of things to unpack. In fact, this whole episode should have been about that. Because there's a lot of things I have to talk about. about the president's address. Now you want me to talk about unlawful structures in the national park. I don't even really. I'm not very worried about all of this because these structures have been demolished. But anyway, and I know people will want us to spend a bit more time to talk about this stuff that you don't want us to talk about. The Ministry of Tourism has demolished 30 illegal structures that were developed in the Lusaka National Park. Take a look at this.
Following concerns by the Department of National Parks and Wildlife on the encroachment of over 100 structures in Lusaka National Park in June this year, through an operation called Muchose, the Ministry of Tourism has finally started the demolition of the illegal structures that were constructed in the national park. Ministry of Tourism Public Relations Officer Natalie Mashkolo says about 30 illegal structures have been demolished by the Department of National Parks and Wildlife.
From Saturday 14 September 2024 into Sunday 15th, the Ministry of Tourism through the Department of National Parks and Wildlife and pursuant to the Zambia Wildlife Act number 14 of 2015 and Statutory Instrument number 44 of 2011 conducted an operation codenamed Muchose, where it demolished the illegal infrastructure.
She says this is also a reminder of presidential pronouncements that illegality will not be tolerated.
As we are all aware, our president, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, has on many occasions preached about the need to abide by the rule of law, that any person who breaks the law, despite their social status, are on their own and will face the law on their own.
And a check by Diamond News at the encroached area in the Lusaka National Park found some structures demolished, a move that has compelled Care for Nature to commend government for protecting nature.
With the rapid population growth that we're experiencing as a country, together with climate change, most of the wildlife habitats are under threat. And so if there are no control measures put in place to ensure that protected areas are not under the threat of human activities or encroachment, we will find a situation where animals continuously stray. And at the same time, we would like to appeal to the National Park and Wildlife Authority that as they are protecting these wildlife habitats, they also invest in rescuing animals, because lately we have seen a lot of stray animals being shot. And so because of the human activities, a lot of national parks are under threat.
Over the years, there has been concerns of encroachment in protected areas. This also results in animal-human conflict that sometimes result in fatalities. Victoria Kayeye Yambani, Diamond News.
Zambia's eastern province, where agriculture is the lifeblood of the local economy, smallholder farmers are struggling to stay afloat. Take a look at this.
Eastern Province is predominantly an agricultural livelihood region with many smallholder farmers. However, climate change has significantly impacted their lives, and last season's drought spared none. As President Hakainde Hichilema addressed Parliament on Friday last week, many farmers expected practical solutions to help them realize their potential in agriculture. Key concerns include extension services, farmer input support program, reducing the cost of farm inputs, which remains unchanged since the 2021 government transition. Joseph Sakala, a smallholder farmer, is among those awaiting tangible solutions.
Iwangalepele bwanyi pautiwo na farmer tujoti nse farmer fataleza uzankhala pa mtengo wa bwino koma sivichitika.
How can the president fail to fulfill his promise of making fertilizer very cheap? That is the only way we as farmers are going to benefit and have a better agriculture sector and improve our livelihood.
So, inekuli wa president inaganza kuti maybe wangafakeko mzeru maningi nkhani ya farming.
The president's speech was not so obvious in terms of the farming inputs, as well as how he is going to make the agriculture sector better for us. As it stands, farm inputs are very expensive, and as long as these inputs are expensive, it remains difficult for us. Youth Development Foundation believes more needs to be done in the agriculture sector by the government.
And they reduce the cost of fertilizer, meaning that now government, the subsidy on agriculture is removed and channeled to other needy areas of the economy. That way we are going to see a sustainable agriculture. But as long as people are not contributing, they're not buying fertilizer at the cost effective price, they will still continue calling for cooperatives and so on. Cooperatives that should actually be formed for marketing.
Caritas Chipata expresses concern over corruption matters.
We want to make it very clear as Caritas that corruption is corruption. Whether it was committed in the past, or it is being committed in the present, or it will be committed in the future, it remains corruption. And we ask this government and the governments to come, to continue fighting, to continue seeking justice, to continue bringing to book for those that would have committed the corruption in the past or in the present or in the future. We need to do away with this vice of corruption.
Samo Sylvester Kwawe, Diamond News, Eastern Zambia.
Convicted Pambashe Member of Parliament Ronald Chitotela has appealed against the decision of the lower court dismissing a matter in which he was challenging the seizure of his state lodge property. Take a look at this.
On August 20th, 2024, convicted Pambashe Member of Parliament Ronald Chitotela lost a matter in which he was challenging the seizure of his state lodge property in Chongwe district. Dissatisfied with the decision of the lower court, Mr. Chitotela has since lodged an appeal which he says has a realistic chance of success. He says the Anti-Corruption Commission did not follow the due process of the law in seizing his property. In his appeal, Mr. Chitotela has accused the court of misdirecting itself in law and in fact by misinterpreting and misapplying the provisions of Articles 17 and 18 of the Constitutional Act No. 2 of 2016, specifically in relation to his right to privacy and the presumption of innocence. He has submitted that the court ruling failed to adequately safeguard his fundamental rights under the provisions of the Constitution. Mr. Chitotela has told the court that the earlier judgment delivered failed to properly consider the legal basis and justification for the seizure of the property in light of the protection of fundamental rights. He has also accused the court of misdirecting itself in law and in fact. In this matter, the Economic and Financial Crimes Court High Court Division dismissed Mr. Chitotela's lawsuit against the SEC, seeking a declaration that his state lodge property seized by the Commission was legally and genuinely acquired based on the documents that he had provided. But the court dismissed the petition on the grounds that Mr. Chitotela failed to prove his claims on a balance of probabilities. Jonya, Diamond News.
Finally, Diamond Media has announced that the nomination window for the Personality of the Year Awards Portiers 2024 has officially been opened. Diamond Media's head of production and senior manager, Dingindaba Jonah Buyoya, says the Portiers is a significant mark of recognition for Zambia, but also a good opportunity for fans to reward their personalities. Mr. Buyoya has further indicated that viewers can now visit diamondtvzambia.com to make their nominations, adding that not all categories are open to public nominations, as an expert council has been put in place to deliberate on more technical categories. Nah, you know what? Don't take a look at this because, it's me. And I'm saying these things. Can you believe I'm in the news, though, bro? I'm literally in the news. And they're reading me like I'm in the news. It's insane. Also means I'm pretty old. But our conversation has been cut short, and I hate the fact that our conversation has been cut short because I really wanted to go in and talk about these things and spend time talking about what the president said. I haven't even talked about the energy crisis and how the president addressed the energy crisis. I haven't talked about food security. The president made some significant points with regards to this. I haven't talked about the mining sector. I can talk about the energy crisis tomorrow. Bye. Bye, guys. Not even gonna say Zambia, what a dick.